welcome to Ashton Gate, a very noisy Ashton Gate. As you may be able to see just below me, the lawnmowers are out, so hopefully the audio will travel. Shout at me if you can't hear me. I'll try and speak louder, but hopefully my voice will travel and this will be okay, but just shout if you cannot hear. Norwich City are through to the third round of the Carabao Cup for the first time since the 2018-19 season. They played Wycombe Wanderers in the third round that time around. They beat Stevenage and Cardiff to get there. This evening, Norwich have won here by 1-0. That ends what's been a pretty dire record for David Wagner at this ground. Prior to coming here with Norwich City tonight, his teams hadn't scored a goal, let alone one here. So the fact Norwich have been able to do that in a very professional manner is very, very pleasing as well. It maintains what has been a fantastic start to the season, an unbeaten start to the season, and it absolutely does quantify a cup run, and no one can tell me different. It's been a really good night actually for Norwich. I thought they were the better side. They created the better opportunities throughout the game, and once they got their noses in front, to be honest, I thought they defended quite well. They got quite deep late on and quite deep pretty quickly. But actually, the overall piece, you look on it and you reflect on it, even though it felt a little bit nervy at the time. George Long didn't have too many saves to make, so they controlled the game pretty well. They had the better chances. Adam Eder had two glorious chances in the first half. The first one I thought he was a little bit unlucky for from across from the left. The second one, I haven't seen it back, so I'm speaking without that advantage. But he does really well, I think, to get to the ball, and the idea is right. Just tries to nod the ball back down into the turf and bounce it up, which is, as a striker, you always try to do, to try and to try and get pace off the ball, to try and catch the keeper out. That extra bounce, particularly when a goalkeeper's coming back one way, can be really effective. I did wonder in real time if he could have planted the header, but I think that I've floated that theory at a few people, and they tell me that I'm probably being a little bit too harsh. So I think he does well to make contact with a brilliant cross from Quaheta, nods it down, and O'Leary has to tip it over the bar. I think he's just probably arched his head a little bit too far down. It's bounced a little bit too early off the turf, and that's why, because it was quite a bouncy pitch tonight, it generated quite a lot of bounce for O'Leary to tip over. Probably felt he should have scored that, but those were the two really good opportunities. Radio Norfolk boys just leaving. Those were the two really good opportunities in the first half. In the second, Norwich again got the goal pretty early. It was a brilliant goal, lovely diagonal ball from Marcelino Nunez. Sam McCallum absolutely busts to get there, connects with his left foot to push it into Quaheta's path, and it's a lovely twist and finish from the Polish international into the far corner of the net. His first goal for Norwich City for 3 years. He's had a lot of injuries and a loan spell away to Birmingham in that time. I'm so pleased for him. He's had to endure so much, injuries, probably being criticised and maybe, dare I even say, ridiculed a little bit for his performances and the manner that he's played. He's obviously had COVID issues that affected his heart. There were points where people were wondering if he would play football again. He spent some time out on loan, obviously at Birmingham, as I said, and did pretty well, and then picked up another injuries. He's had a year out of the game, and actually I think since pre-season, Przemysław Quaheta has really applied himself well. I remember speaking particularly in the early pre-season games and talking about how effective he looked and how bright he looked and how positive he looked. And I think maybe my one criticism was, can we see some end products? Can we see just a spark that could get him going? And that could be it tonight. He took it really well. It's a really difficult technique to turn and hit a shot on the turn and to angle it into that far corner away from the goalkeeper was absolutely superb. So a really excellent finish from a player who's done really well tonight, and I think everyone will be really pleased for. And that was the reaction at the goal. And what I really liked about it was, instead of taking the moment, enjoying the moment for himself after 3 really long, tough years at this football club, he pointed straight away to Sam McCallum. He was keen to share that praise, or to ensure that he got praise for his role in the goal as well. That was really nice, and really speaks volumes, I think, of the camaraderie in this group. But David Wagner's invested a lot in Przemysław Quaheta since he came back. He told him, you're not going out on loan, we're not going to sell you, we want you in and around the group. And I think we're beginning to see why. He's beginning to look a lot more comfortable and a lot more capable in English football. I feel like he's got a stronger upper body now. He looks like he's built muscle in the time that he's been away, and that's kind of allows him to utilise his speed a little bit better. And the way that Norwich want to play as well, when they're trying to entice opponents to press them in their third, that does create space in behind, and Norwich all night really utilised that. There were a few moments in the second half against tiring legs where Quaheta's pace really got them up the pitch, and there was a moment just towards the end, where he just couldn't quite get across into the box with the right precision or the right technique. But overall, he was so encouraging, and he was so encouraging tonight, and probably showed why David Wagner believed that. And I think it's worth noting as well, when Dean Smith was at the football club, we heard a lot of whispers that he was a big fan of Przemysław Poeta as well, as was Daniel Farke. He's probably had a very difficult hand dealt to him, and it's going to be really interesting to see now how he uses this moment, because in the same way that we've spoken about it with Adam Eder for a long period of time, a moment, a goal, a match-winning moment, I guess, can spark you as a footballer, and it can really set you on your way. And I hope now he can kind of spread his wings and go, because there's a player in there, and he's got a really unique, really interesting physical profile. And I think there's probably been lots of debates about how best to utilise that. We've even seen him play at a left back, but it's not just the goal. His overall game tonight was really impressive. He was probably Norwich City's best player. I mentioned that cross earlier for Adam Eder that was really enticing. And it was just a very solid performance. I spoke to him after the game. He was very, very, very pleased, as you can imagine, but also very keen to put it in context. So delighted for him. I also thought young Callum Fisher was very solid and very composed. He had a couple of moments, as you'd expect, where there was a bit of a loose touch, but on what was a very young right side with him and Tony Spriggett, I thought they coped with the occasion very, very well, actually. And look, I felt this game as a contest in general, very similar to that QPR game in the first round. Probably just lacked a competitive edge, lacked a little bit of intensity. Norwich made 9 changes. I think Bristol City made 5. It's probably natural that those players coming in aren't as composed and aren't as solid and aren't as up to date and familiar with what they've been doing, because they don't have that cohesion of matches. So I think it's understandable the way the game panned out. Norwich City will be absolutely delighted to have got through it. And George Long in his debut, I thought looked pretty comfortable. Like I say, wasn't tested too much. Made one good save from Nahki Wells from a tight angle in the first half. Thought his distribution was really good. I thought the way he kind of swept out of his line and read the game more generally was really good. But again, probably didn't see him tested too much in terms of pure shot stopping ability. And there was a moment later on from a cross where he came out and tried to connect with it and just read that a little bit wrong. But overall, I thought it was a solid debut from him. Pretty encouraging signs. And we saw Adam Forshaw later on as well, and he got booking pretty early on for descent, which I think set the tone. But he did everything that Norwich will want him to do, which is come into a game, disrupt it, break it up, ruin the rhythm and the flow of it, and kind of drag Norwich City over the line. He's another experienced head. He's played in so many matches. He's the type of player that you want to bring into a game like this, just to control it, to manage those dying embers of it. And I felt he did that really well. Kind of broke the play up, committed a couple of decent fouls, got Norwich away on the counter on a couple of occasions as well. And that was really pleasing for him. So it was good to see him. And obviously he's got a little bit of time to work his way back to full fitness. But overall, that was a pretty good, solid, if what unspectacular start to his time at the football club. So that was good as well. An interesting moment, it was actually spotted by our photographer Paul Chesterton. He's got some excellent pictures of it towards the end of the game after the celebrations, which, you know, as we've seen, have been such a joy to watch, actually, that kind of olays and the whole team joining in with that. I really like that that's a whole team thing rather than a head coach fans thing. Not that there was necessarily anything wrong with that, but that felt maybe specific to Daniel and that particular relationship. And I think we are seeing now actually a relationship forged with the team and the fans. So it's nice that that's celebrated in that way. But after that played out and the players had kind of headed down the tunnel, there was a moment with Andrew Omobamidele where he hung back and he was there for a good minute, our photographer says. And he looked quite emotional, to be honest with you. And there was definite waving, there was definite thumbs up, there was definite blowing kisses, that kind of thing. And I think we've all kind of seen this before, right? And if it wasn't a few days left in the transfer window, we probably wouldn't think much of it. But where he is, where Norwich are, where the transfer window sits at the moment, it did feel like a moment. Whether it pans out to be a moment, I'm not sure. Milan have obviously shown interest throughout the summer. I think that's interesting. Fulham as well, I think. You look at Tosin Adarabioyo, he looks set to leave. Could that create an opening for him in the Premier League? We'll wait and see. Obviously, Friday is the deadline there, but that did look like a moment. I think we all know, having seen players do that similar. I remember Leroy Fair doing it back in the day, and we can probably list several others who have done it as well. Usually that results and it means one thing. but we will see whether that transpires in the days and the weeks to come. We've all been waiting for it as well. We finally got that verdict on Josh Sargent from David Wagner from the weekend. Norwich are looking at a period of months, not weeks, with him. They're currently assessing whether or not that will need surgery. I'd imagine he's gone to see a specialist in London for that. It was basically as we felt it was, and David Wagner described it as serious. It's a massive blow, firstly, and yes, for Norwich, and I'll get into that, but also for Josh Sargent, because we just spoke about Przemysław Pocheta, and Josh Sargent's had to be so patient for this opportunity at Norwich City. He's had to wait for 18 months, 2 years really, for that striking position after Pukki left the club. He took the number 9 shirt. He started so brightly, 3 goals in 4 games. He's kind of proven that he's capable of scoring goals consistently and adding that to his game, which had been a major criticism really of him. And he's been playing on the right wing a lot. And I sensed it because I asked him questions on it. And when you would ask him about not playing up front, he would kind of pause and he would kind of bite his tongue for a minute. And then he would come out with maybe the answer that you'd expect a footballer to give. He's waited so long, and to have that kind of snatched away from him with a really nasty injury is a massive blow for him personally, particularly, as I said, the way that he started the campaign. Internationals on the horizon as well. But obviously for Norwich, it creates a big dilemma. We saw tonight Marcelino Nunez and Liam Gibbs were pretty interchangeable with the way that they played. Adam Eder spearheaded their attack. I would expect him to do the same at Rotherham. They now have a really interesting few days ahead. I'm not convinced that there's a whole amount of money to go out and sign a striker, be it on loan or be it permanently. And that was kind of how it was mapped out to me after Adam Forshaw joined the club, that was probably it in terms of the budget. They might have to be very creative, and they might have to be very cunning with the way that they produce answers to this particular predicament. It's going to be really difficult, I think, to tempt a striker, because it's all very well and good saying go and sign someone on loan, but the club has to agree to it, and they probably only agree to it if there's game time involved. And Norwich City in a position to offer a striker game time ahead of Adam Eder, I'm not sure, and obviously Ashley Barnes. And then it has to be someone who's of sufficient quality to impact it. So again, it makes it very difficult when you combine the financial aspects with the profile and type of striker that Norwich City are going to need. That makes it feel like a very difficult search, and that is probably why you're hearing a lot of David Wagner talk about Liam Gibbs and Marcelino Nunez and Przemysław Pocheta and internal options, and they're probably helped by the fact that Przemysław Pocheta had a good game tonight. I personally don't think he's capable of doing that 10 role. I'm happy to be, or 9.5 role as it kind of is. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I feel they need a striker, but I think that's easier said than done, and it wouldn't surprise me, stood here tonight on Tuesday, knowing that everything can change so quickly in the transfer window, just like that, if very, very quickly it moved and it changed and it shifted and something popped up that allowed them to do something. And I think we all hope, probably David Wagner in his heart of hearts probably hopes that is the case. But it is going to be difficult, I think, in my view. The third round, Norwich are in it, as I said, for the first time since the 18-19 season. They actually progressed through it. They beat Wycombe 4-3 on that occasion. Jordan Rose scored a hat-trick. The next round takes place, and I'm laughing because if not, I think I'll cry, after Norwich City head to Plymouth, and a week before they play Swansea in midweek away from home, which means that Norwich are inevitably going to be away somewhere ridiculously far to ensure that we have Plymouth away on the Saturday, really, really long way away, and then a nice midweek trip, really, really far away. So the draw is tomorrow night. Anyone at home will do. But obviously Norwich have a real chance to keep that momentum going, gives them another opportunity to rotate their squad, for David Wagner to look at options. The cup competitions are always really useful for that. And we'll see who they get. Ipswich are still in it. Leeds got knocked out. It's been some really interesting results tonight, so we'll see how we go. But this was really good on the whole. It keeps the momentum going. Clean sheet, I think David Wagner will be pleased with. But the professionalism that was embedded throughout this performance was really, really encouraging, actually, and means that everyone bounces into Rotherham on Saturday still with that positivity and that energy, and they're looking like a really capable side at the moment, even when they make 8 changes, and I think that's a real positive, particularly when there has been some concerns, not least from me, about their strength in depth. So I'm really, really pleased about that. If they were as clinical as they were on Saturday, they could have won this game by a convincing margin. Liam Gibbs hit the bar in the second half as well. But what was key was when they went ahead, they never really looked like conceding, and that was positive as well. So there we go. We're actually staying overnight in and around Bristol, so we haven't got that long trip tonight, thank goodness. That's on the cards for tomorrow. Kudos to the 900 or so Norwich City fans that are in that away end. Fantastic effort to come down here on a Tuesday night. And yeah, it's another away trip on Saturday to Rotherham. Typical. I stop and the lawnmower stop. It's a glorious stadium, this, as you can see. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the Pink Un YouTube channel. Plenty more videos across the weekend. We'll have David Wagner's reaction up very, very shortly as well. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.